No, you're going to have a go in it, aren't you?
Well, it's very kind offer.
I'll pull up by the farm shop, and then you can drive.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. Oh, and electric mirrors, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind if I just pop this one up?
Yeah, sure.
I assume it's... Oh, am I doing the wrong one?
Yeah, it's that one. Is that going up?
Oh, there we go. It's going in and out.
Oh, no, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't go up.
No.
Side to side, but...
All mod cons apart from that one.
Hi everyone, welcome to Nightfall Drives. Doug here, and today Dan has traversed the Chilterns in his 1988 Jaguar XJ-S. So thanks very much, Dan, for bringing your car down today.
Pleasure.
It's beautiful. I'm really excited about this one, and it's in, well, perfect colour, beautiful spec car, which I think you were quite lucky to find originally, weren't you?
Yeah, I spent sort of 2 or 3 years looking for the right one. Had to be a manual car, had to be sport pack, and they didn't make that many. Ideally, I wanted it in Jag Racing Green with a magnolia interior, and I found this one. But yeah, it wouldn't have been the car I would have bought given that it hadn't really done many miles. It had been restored and then sort of sat up, and I think it had done about 500 miles from 2005 to 2019 when I bought it.
Yeah, that's not really what you want, is it?
No. I could have been buying a whole lot of problems. And, you know, luckily, it's been okay. And actually, you know, the more I've used it, the more miles I've done in it, the better it's got. So
yeah, and well, thanks to your hard work as well, there's some fresh restoration that's been happening recently, isn't there?
Yeah, it's more luck than judgment, but we got there in the end with the new front valance. Because the old one had fallen to pieces because they're quite low at the front end. But yeah, there's been a few other bits and pieces that I've done to it in the 3 or so years I've had it, and it's getting there. Still lots to do. It's like any old car, isn't it? It's never finished. Yeah, the list always gets longer.
yeah, it's all good. And I suppose for people who don't know, this was sort of a follow-on to the E-Type, but it was more of a Grand Tourer.
Yeah, I think that was the case.
70s.
I think that when they were launched in '75 as a V12, there were a few manual gearbox cars built, about 350 of them, but most of them were automatic until this was launched. The AJ6, the straight six engine, was launched in '83, and that was launched with a 5-speed Getrag manual gearbox.
Yeah.
But really, it was only put in the XJ-S as a test bed for the new saloon, the XJ40. And I think it's fair to say that when they launched the car and they launched that engine in the XJ-S, it wasn't perfect. It certainly wasn't as smooth as the V12. It had a few teething problems. But I think by the time this one was built, 5 or so years later, that had all been ironed out. And it's a really good lump now. And this is a sports pack car. It's got the sports pack suspension, so it is a lot firmer, it's better connected to the road, and I think having the manual gearbox as well, it just makes it more interactive. You know, you can get in, you can drive it, the steering's been firmed up, it's got the Recaro style sport seats. It just feels quite different to drive from the V12, and we had a few V12s in the family. My father owned a few, but interestingly, the one that he liked of all the XJ-S's that he owned was a Sport Pack 3.6 manual. So I think that's probably the reason why.
That's where it's come from.
Yeah, I ended up with this. And I think, you know, the whole thing with the racing XJRs with Tom Wilkinshaw in the 80s in Jag Racing Green, I think that sort of, you know, ignited the enthusiasm, shall we say.
Yeah, they look lovely, those the racing versions. But one thing that has surprised me is how compact it is. So it's been a while since I've seen one in the flesh, and it doesn't take up much of the road. It's quite narrow, and it's quite long.
It's definitely quite long. It is definitely. It's a long car.
But it's quite sort of nice to sort of throw down a country road actually, and we'll find out later, obviously. But
Yeah, no, it's a good size, and I think, you know, as modern cars have got wider, it is actually nice to drive something that you can keep on your side of the road, even on, you know, the narrow B roads that we've got around here. You know, and that works quite well, and it's also quite low, and you know, you'll also see there's not a huge amount of cabin room. You know, the footwells are very narrow, etc. Because of course it was originally designed for the V12. And with that V configuration engine, it takes up quite a lot of space. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really, really good size car for you know, UK B roads.
Yeah. Shall we take a look under the bonnet?
If you want, yeah.
Wow, that is quite a lump for a well, obviously straight six,
3.6 straight six, 221 horsepower, about 250 pound-foot of torque. So significantly less powerful than the V12, which was at this stage would have been around about 300 horsepower. But again, because it's got the manual gearbox, it's not actually that much slower. And I mean, Autocar did a test in the late 80s and figured it at 7.1 seconds to 60. So it's okay. I mean, it can keep up with modern traffic. That's the important thing.
Yeah, that's sort of nearly you know, 90s hot hatch sort of, or
Yeah, I mean, the only problem is this thing still weighs 1,700 kilos, so it is a heavy car. But the other advantage that this one's got over the V12 is economy. You know, this will do 25, 26, 27 on a run quite easily, whereas the V12s, you know, if you crack 20, you've done really, really well.
Yeah, well, they launched that into a fuel crisis as well, didn't they, the V12?
Yeah, I mean, I felt so sorry for them. I mean, launching the V12 in the first pre-HE XJ-Ss, you know, that was 12 or 13 to the gallon. You know, when the high efficiency V12 was introduced in 81, 82, that was 20 to the gallon. But it is, you know, you know, you can put 70 quid's worth of fuel in, and it's basically half full. That's the problem, because I think it's about a 90 litre tank. But it does give you a really, really good cruising range.
Yeah, and that's really this was that generation of Grand Tourers, four-seaters in the 70s that were very popular. And,
I think, you know, in those days, I think you hopped in your car and you drove somewhere, didn't you? You didn't, you know, you didn't do domestic flights. You didn't, you know, you realistically you drive to the south of France. And actually, if you look at the original launch brochure for the 75 car, it was all shot in the south of France. You know, it was saying this was the lifestyle that you'd be going for if you bought this car or if you had the money to buy this car. Because, you know, you've got to remember, when the XJ-S was launched, it was the replacement and successor to the E-Type, but it was twice the price. You know, the E-Type, the Series 3 V12 was about £4,500 when on run out in 1974. These were launched, it was nearly £9,000. They doubled the price. So you can understand why people were struggling to understand where the XJ-S fitted in. It didn't look as, you know, it wasn't as conventionally pretty and as handsome as the E-Type. It was, you know, it was for some people, it's a challenging looking car. I mean, bizarrely, the aerodynamics on this are actually a lot better. It was Malcolm Sayers' last design. You know, so the drag factor, it's a lot more aerodynamic than the E-Type. You know, and that's why actually its high-speed fuel economy isn't too bad at all. I think drag factor of about 0.38. Whereas the E-Type was probably 0.44. So yeah, it was, you know, it was a design that was quite aerodynamic, and that's what the rear panels were all about. That was all about aerodynamics.
And this
I think
was a little bit controversial, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean in Germany they couldn't you couldn't buy one because they wouldn't approve them because of bad visibility.
Yeah.
There was a story that William Lyons, who was head of Jaguar at the time, said, right, what's selling at the moment? And they said, oh, the Ferrari Dino is, and of course that had the famous, you know, buttresses. And they said, oh, that's it. We'll design one that looks like that. I think it's apocryphal. I don't think that was the case. I think genuinely, Malcolm Sayer, who designed the D-Type, who designed the E-Type, he was an aerodynamicist. That was done for aerodynamic reasons.
Yeah, well, and the proof's in the results, I guess. The low drag, and it's quite a concave screen as well. Does that cause any problems? Like, does it get sort of rainwater and things clouding it up, or is it?
No, it's actually. Do you know what? It stays. You know, if you look at something like a modern Golf, which, you know, you've got to wipe the screen every 2 seconds because it's always got sort of muck all over it. No, funny enough, it really doesn't. So obviously I presume it probably, all of this keeps the rain off it.
Yeah.
I mean, you haven't got a lot of...
attached. Yeah.
You haven't got a lot of rear visibility. And actually rear 3/4 visibility, you know, clearly you've got with this panel. It's not great. But you just drive around it, you just get used to it.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I'm quite used to poor rear visibility in the, in the Lotus as well. It's you just work around it and get used to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So shall we take it out on the road? See how.
Yeah, let's. The sun's come back out as well. We're doing well.
Beautiful, yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't have believed, looking at the weather yesterday,
No.
we'd be out.
What have we got there?
That's an old Rover, isn't it?
Rover. Yeah, it is, isn't it? What's it?
It's P5, I think.
P5, that's it. Yeah.
So one thing my wife said, she said the chairs in this are comfortable. You know, compared to modern cars, they're all sort of quite hard.
Yeah.
These you sort of just quite soft, and you just settle into them.
It's like an armchair.
And it does show actually how good the suspension was on these. You don't feel the bumps. You know, you can hit big potholes because, you know, you've got so much sidewall. You know, in a modern car, it's quite jittery. I mean, saying that, the Lotus, I mean, the way their handling balance works and the ride handling is amazing, literally amazing.
Yeah.
And it amazes me actually, and McLaren's the same, how well they ride, you know, based on how well they corner.
Yeah.
But I think it's because they're set up in the UK.
The British roads, yeah.
Yeah. You know, I've worked with German suspension engineers, and you take them out on roads, and they just go, we cannot believe how bad the roads are in this country.
Well, yeah, you're right about this. This is like a comfortable armchair, and everything is so well insulated from the road.
Yeah.
The high-profile tyres, I guess, help a bit.
Yeah, I mean, they're not, you know, the V12s, the early ones were on sort of like 70 sections, so they were on, you know, proper balloons, and they just rode beautifully.
Yeah.
But when Richard Bremner drove this for the Jaguar World article, he's like, actually, it's, and he owned a V12, and he said it's totally different to drive.
Yeah.
He said it is, you know, it's still, and you'll find it when you drive it as well, the steering's a lot heavier than you think it is, because they, you know, everyone thinks, you know, super light steering, and real sort of floaty ride, but, you know, it's not bad at all.
So the Sport Pack changed the steering feel a bit. And
steering valving, thicker anti-roll bars, and much thicker bushes and different springs as well.
Yeah. The magazine article was up. It sounds quite a good experience. Speaking to Richard Bremner, and I guess it's a bit more of a professional day than today, I assume.
No, not at all. I think it's we're sort of surrounded by all the cameras. It's amazing, isn't it? It's sort of, you know, you feel it's you're in the middle of something. But yeah, no, it was. Do you know, I really enjoyed it because it was great speaking to Richard, and he was driving this, and you know, he's old enough that he actually drove them when they were new, and it was great to get his views and actually how it compared to his memory of it when he drove it 30 odd years ago.
Yeah, he said it was a bit different to how you remembered. I suppose your frame of reference changes after all that time, doesn't it?
I think so. And he owned a V12 and HE, so again that was a lot softer. And he said totally different driving experience. This you actually have to get in, and he drove it 150 yards down the road. He went, "This is a totally different car. It's just far more direct, and it's more of a sports car." It's not a sports car in the conventional sense, but it's a GT car that's got a bit of a sporting edge. So it's probably, I think, closer to the six-cylinder sporting BMWs in the 80s, the E24, the 635 CSIs, etc.
Yeah, that was the real competition, I guess, the Germans. It was that era where you're saying earlier, like it's a lifestyle car where you did the 4 seats and the coupe shape, the Grand Touring came along. And
I think it was probably its closest competitor at the time, and both on and off the track, because, I remember going to watch, touring car, Group 8 touring car, and it was the Jags versus the BMWs in the mid-80s. They proper racing as well.
Yeah, I remember seeing pictures of these race trip. I kind of naturally compare this in my head to things like the Aston Vantage as well. And I guess more recently the Jag has always been a kind of a similar or a more budget version, I guess, of the Astons of the time.
Yeah, I think more budget is probably a good way of looking at it. And I think the Astons at the time the performance was probably on a different level. Even from the V12, it was certainly the Vantage cars. They were thick end of 400 horsepower, so they were a level up. But probably the standard cars, I think, certainly with about 300 horsepower, those V8s were similar to the V12s. But I don't think this would see which way one of those had gone.
It did eventually turn to the DB7 in this chassis.
Yeah, I mean, if you look underneath, it's basically the same car. But you've got to remember the DB7 was originally a Jaguar design that Jaguar said, no, we don't want to do it, and they spent a bit more time developing what turned into the XK8 with the V8. But I would be fascinated to actually try a DB7 just to see how it feels in comparison. And those early cars with the 3.2 straight 6, so it was basically the same lump as this one, but with a supercharger attached to it. Yeah. But I would really like to try one.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying this. This is a similar shape and size and everything to Mark III Capri I used to have. But this is a step above, obviously. But I love the long bonnet, the low seat position. It's really right up my street.
Yeah, probably size-wise, I'd say it's broadly similar. Yeah. Probably the Capri's got a bit more room inside, though.
Yeah, I think it feels very similar. I think the plush interior in here sort of hugs you a bit more, and it was a bit more sparse than this.
They were great fun, though. Which one did you have? Was it 2.8?
Oh, I had a 1.6. Fortunately, this was a while ago. I was went while I was a student. So
so you probably wouldn't have had a 2.8 on a on a student's budget.
No. But this was kind of influenced by your family. Your dad used to have them, and I guess was it inevitable you'd end up with an XJ-S?
I think so. It must be something in the gene pool, because I've got one. My brother's had one. Obviously, my father had them as well. So I think they're just. I like it. And I think for what they offer, they're really quite affordable.
How do you tend to use it?
I try and use it every week. We've talked about cars being better if you use them more regularly. So if it's dry, I use it. It's taxed all year round, and as I said, I will try and get out every week. I mean, it's horrible when the the salt's on the road.
Yeah.
But if it's not too bad, I'll still take it out.
Yeah. I suppose if it's dry, you can.
Yeah.
Not worry so much.
Absolutely. Now you're going to have a go in it, aren't you?
Well, it's very kind offer.
I'll pull up by the farm shop, and then you can drive.
Well, thank you very much, Dan.
Now I haven't bothered with a handbrake because it's a fly-off handbrake and it's a nightmare.
Okay.
So it's fine. You might just need to push the seat back. So I think you're maybe. I don't know. You'll be all right actually. Probably similar length leg to me.
Yeah, I think I've kind of got long body, short legs. I think.
So conventional H. Obviously, so first just usual.
Yeah.
Just, it'll be easy. Honestly, it's doddle to drive this thing.
5-speed.
Yep.
Yeah. And electric mirrors, you said.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you mind if I just pop this one up?
Yeah, sure.
I assume it's. Oh, I'm doing the wrong one.
Yeah, it's that one. Is that going up?
There we go. It's going in and out.
Oh no, it doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't go up.
No.
Side to side, but.
all mod cons apart from that one.
Right. I'm still pretty good actually. Oh, it's so smooth. This is very, very different to anything I've driven for a long time actually.
Yeah. But honestly, after 5 minutes, you'll forget you're driving it, and you'll just drive it like a modern car. But it's a 50-year-old design.
Yeah, it's so refined. Like older stuff tends to be very noisy, and the wind noise especially. But I suppose the screen is quite right back, and it's actually really refined. You were saying earlier, it fools you into thinking it's actually more modern than it really is.
I think so. Everyone who's driven it has said exactly the same thing to me. After a while, they forget they're driving an old car, and you just get on with it. The only thing you will find, it's like this is so close to your the top of the wheel.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it needs a little bit more look than usual. Yeah. It's
But the steering's probably slightly heavier than you thought it would be as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to these twisty bits to see how it loads up.
It's funny actually, I quite enjoy being in the passenger seat because it's very rare I get driven in it.
Yeah. Yeah, you do take it a bit more, don't you?
Yeah.
I quite like it when Kath drives a Lotus and I can see people's reactions and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice. It is a nice gearbox.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's got a bit of slop in it. There's a linkage I've got to change. But it's not bad. I sorted out the transmission damper because when I first bought it, it bounced up and down. There's like a big donut that sits under the gearbox, and if you put a new one in, it just firms it all up.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a little bit of, I think so, a little bit of play that it does.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's like a nice throw, really. You know exactly where it's going.
Yeah, you don't miss shifting it actually. It's I suppose it's probably quite a wide gate.
And we're keeping up with modern traffic as well, easily.
Easily.
Yeah, it does weigh a bit the corners, the steering. Yeah. I suppose it'll be hydraulic power steering.
Yeah. Yeah, no E-Pass in this.
I was just for a second wondering if it was low power steering, but I suppose it 88 by then a lot of this.
They were, and the V12s. It was fingertip light, and that's certainly you can bear. It's not fingertip light, is it?
No, you can feel what it's doing.
Bit of heft.
What does it rev to? It's,
5.5. But just
5.5,
give it a few revs.
Yeah, it's got a bit of go.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely quicker than the 1.6 Capri. But there's some memories coming back with the shape of the dash and the bonnet.
And it's such a shallow windscreen as well. You kind of feel you're looking through a letterbox.
Do you find that people don't see you as easily? Like, do you drive with the lights on, or is it low and dark?
Yeah, actually, do you know what? That's a really good point. I don't really think about it, but I think there have been a few occasions when I don't think people have seen me. Because you're right, it's, certainly, okay, it's a nice bright day today, but even so, I think, dark green and it's quite low.
Yeah.
And of course, there's no daytime running lights or anything like that, so...
Yeah. I worry about it a bit in the Mazda because it's a low down dark colour as well.
Yeah.
I've now got DRLs on it, but I used to run them around with the lights on.
That's a good idea. I don't think it would look right on this to have DRLs.
No. You were saying it's a late 88, so it's got the ABS, it's got a few...
Yeah, this has got ABS on it. I've got no idea if it still works. I mean, the light goes out when it should go out.
Yeah, don't worry, I won't be trying that out.
But the brakes, they've all been redone, and they're quite sharp, and it pulls up nice and straight. But I think the XJ-S, it's a car that a lot of people, they sort of think of, it's a bit of a boulevard cruiser, it's a bit soft. And these aren't like that at all. And as I said, 2 journalists have now driven it who know their stuff, and they've both gone, actually, that's quite a surprising car. It's not what I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's compared to the V12 version, but also was the road test against the 944.
Yeah, I mean, the 944 is a supercar. Interesting, that's one car I did look at because we also had 944s in the family, and I quite like the idea. And it's interesting to compare and contrast. 944 a 4-cylinder car, super engine, but again, very, very different, smaller, more of a sports car. But the thing that just put me off Porsches as a sort of cheaper classic proposition is just the cost of parts for them. They're just that much more expensive.
Local YouTube trivia around the corner here. I don't know if you watched the late break show.
Yeah.
This guy who lives just here with an F50 and a Miura.
Oh right, yes, I've seen that one.
Kevin Johnson.
Yeah.
Tends to put some of the local car meets as well.
Yeah, I bet. God.
Yeah, lovely. He's got a great condition.
I mean, they're beautiful, aren't they, Miuras?
Yeah. I've actually not seen his Miura in the flesh, but I've seen the F50 a few times. But I'm hoping to see the Miura this year.
No, that would be something else. Did you watch Ian Tyrrell?
Yeah, he does work for Harry.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He does. He is Mr. Lamborghini, I think, in this country now.
Yeah.
And he's always seems to be restoring a Miura.
Yeah, and it's nice that these guys seem to be enjoying sharing it on YouTube.
Well, I think that's the thing. I think it's like, those of us, we like our cars, and you want to share them, don't you? It's sort of... And I'd hate to have a car that, you can't use. You see these cars that are sort of 0 miles, and the moment you actually drive it, you destroy its intrinsic value because, you've driven it. It's no longer a 300-mile version.
Yeah.
But I just thought of having a car that you couldn't drive.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah, I'm obviously very appreciative of guys like yourself who keep these things running, and it's like a weird form of time travel where you can get back in the smells and the noises. And
well, I think it's a case of you think how few of these are left. Manual gearbox XJ-S. I can't think of many people probably our age who've driven one.
Yeah.
So it's just nice just to say chuck you the keys and have a go.
Yeah. Well, I'm very, very grateful, Dan. So,
absolute pleasure.
I've already got into sort of automatic mode. It's so easy to drive.
You're not thinking about driving it now, are you?
No. just enjoying the drive. Yeah, eventually stopping off for a pizza.
I think that sounds like a splendid idea.
Let's do it. I suppose if I had it, I might be tempted to stick on or change the exhaust a little bit, just for the burbliness at high speed or something.
Yeah, it's interesting. You can do a middle box delete.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, when I had it up on the ramp last week, I was looking at it going, I wonder if I should do that, because you can get like a cross pipe one.
Yeah. So
you
you still have a rear silencers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd be tempted, but I'm a bit of a hooligan in that way.
It's funny though. It's getting it right, isn't it? Because what you don't want to do is end up with something that's too boomy.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to have the exhaust noise when you want it. What you don't want is sort of that cruising boom.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something with the Lotus exhaust I'm quite pleased with.
Is it valve and switchable?
Yeah, switchable valve. But even valve open, you can sit on the motorway and it doesn't drone.
Yeah.
You can just hear something. And it's when it's going through the revs, that's when you get the noise.
Yeah.
The Mazda actually is a bit worse on the motorway. I find it is in a certain gear, in sixth gear, between sort of in mid 60 miles an hour up to 70, it's a bit boomy.
Yeah.
But you just drive around it really on long trips.
Yeah, I think that you've got to, haven't you?
Yeah, that was lovely through there. I feel like I could be driving this twice as quickly. It just gives you a lot of confidence.
It's fundamentally a benign chassis as well. You know, it's independent all the way around. It's not going to do anything silly on you. You know, that's why BMWs at the time were known, because they were semi-trailing arms as well. So, you know, you lift off and, you know, the back one wants to overtake the front.
Yeah. Are there any kind of big bills that, well, I suppose there's a number of things, but anything particularly common that clutches or things that are something you want to see done in the service history as you're looking for one of these?
I think it's bodywork, and making sure that all the bits are there as well. Because, you know, if bits are broken or bits are missing and they haven't been replaced, there's a reason why they haven't been replaced. You can't get them. Headlights, we've talked about that. Things like front spoilers, front splitter, anything that breaks uncommonly, they're the bits that are difficult to get. Yeah. So you want to get a complete car. Mechanically, you know, it's just like everything. I think it's all fixable, and the bits are relatively inexpensive as well. But with any old car, you know, any 10-minute job is only, you know, one broken bolt, one sheared nut away from being a 3-hour job. So, you know, everything just takes that much longer. There's just nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I guess it's nice doing some of the work yourself. You know, you can set things up so it's easier next time.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. It's a case of having a go. I'm saying that I've probably broken more things on it than I've fixed. But
very kind.
It's, you know, I'd rather have a go at it, and, you know, everything's always fixable and reversible.
Yeah.
But I think by and large, XJ-S's have got a reputation for being, that they're all trouble. I don't think they're any different from any other car of the similar age. Everything of that age is going to rust. Everything's going to have things that go wrong with them. And I don't think XJ-S's are any worse or any better. And if you buy a car that's been enthusiast owned and has had money spent on it, you know, and genuinely it's got that history where you can see that someone's kept on top of the jobs, I don't think you can go far wrong. And I still think they represent fantastic value for money. You know, they're not expensive in comparison to, you know, I've got this insured for an agreed valuation on it with the insurance company for 12,000 quid.
Yeah, that's...
Which I don't think's a lot of money.
No, it puts it in the realms of attainable classic cars, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And we were talking about fast forwards earlier, what they've done. And,
yeah, you don't get an awful lot of fast forward for 12,000 quid these days.
No, certainly not. And, yeah, I think I do have fond memories of the Capri. I think I'm enjoying this just as much, and if not a bit more, because it's got the luxury side as well. And you don't really want to be thrashing a classic around.
No, I mean, if you're doing that, you're probably in the wrong car.
Yeah. Yeah, more horses.
More horses. Just what we need. We haven't seen enough horses today.
But yeah, feels like a good time then to thank you very much, Dan, for bringing the car out today and for letting me drive. That was a lovely surprise.
No, absolute pleasure. Really enjoyed it.
It's a lovely... Oh, they're going that way. I did choose a bad time for the outro, but yeah, it's a lovely car to drive, and I think it's a sort of testament to how you've looked after it.
Oh, great! I'm glad you've enjoyed it.
Thanks very much, and yeah, if you've got an interesting car, please get in touch if you'd like to star in a film on it. Let me know, and subscribe for hopefully more to come. And we'll see you next time. Thanks very much. That's John.
That's your neighbour, is it?
Yeah. Sorry, I instinctively followed him, trying to get on camera, but yeah, that's my previous video.